Hello and welcome to Old Man Orange Podcast. Well, I got something to announce really quickly. We got an official t-shirt out there right now for the next little while on teespring.com. So if you want to show a little extra support and wear your pride out there, you can go to teespring.com/oldmanorange and pick up one of our kind of limited edition t-shirts. Just features the modern Old Man Orange logo and the website on it, and what would you expect? An orange t-shirt, but it's pretty darn cool, and if you wore it, you'd be even cooler. So go check it out, tell your friends, and then come on back to oldmanorange.com. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
No, I'm Ryan Dunigan. And Marley, if you're listening to this, sorry I forgot to get back to you. Originally, we were supposed to have Marley Silverbrand on this week, and
See, I don't even remember that part. I remember talking about getting him. You sent him a message at some point, and then I was all like,
and he got back to me. He says, "Yeah, sure. When are you guys recording?" And I thought, is it over Skype? And I typed up a response, and I guess I don't know. Maybe I have a short attention span. I guess I just forgot to hit send or something. So. Yeah, I feel a little bad because we're going to talk about Fast and the Furious. I know he likes those movies a lot, so, yeah.
God, you can never go wrong with Fast and the Furious. That's just like the series that kept on giving. You know, it was one of those ones, it felt like it was going to be a generational thing. Like, it was going to be something like, it's going to really appeal to people in the early 2000s, but past that point, not so much. And they found a way to really, like, turn it around and then just make it kind of like a legendary series. Like, it really is something like Lethal Weapon or Die Hard. It's in that same category. That's how I look at it, at least.
I like these movies. They're not my favorite. I wouldn't say I like them as much as Lethal Weapon or Die Hard, but I'll say like nearly all. I'll say this: nearly all the. I never saw Fast and Furious 2, but all the other ones I'd say are definitely better than Die Hard 5. That's for sure. But that being said,
yeah, that's the one thing. Is like I will say like maybe they're not better than Die Hard 1 or 3, and then 4 is probably close to like a lot of them. But they definitely are better than 2 and 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, even Fast and Furious 2 is much better than number 5.
I still need to see number 2, just because that's the only one I have not seen. And Tokyo Drift, I thought was all right. It didn't really blow me away. I did like that character Han, so that's why I liked when they brought him back in the other ones. Which this one finally ties it all around. Which I actually want to say this real quick about that. I was like, okay, cool. They're finally going back to Fast and the Furious 3. But you kind of forget how long ago that movie was filmed. So when you see this guy who's supposed to be in high school. He was in high school back in Fast and Furious 3. Now he's like 38.
He's like 35. I'm glad they finally brought that guy around, though, because I've been waiting for that. So, like, okay, they're bringing everybody else. When are they going to bring the main character from number 3?
Just for a scene.
And then finally, he had a little scene in this one, which was cool. And then they had some of the other characters stand there and whatnot, too. But that's the one thing about Fast and Furious World. I'm like, I'm never too sure. Are these period pieces? Or is Tokyo Drift in the future? Or it's the unanswered question. Like, what more do you say to it?
Well, that one right there, that guy was just waiting by the phone like, oh, here it comes. It's ringing. Like, oh, here it comes. It's, yeah, it's Columbia. It's Sony. They're going to, or it's Universal. It's Universal. They're going to ask me. Yes, I like that part. Yes, I'd be happy. He gets a script. Like, oh, it's only, I'm just giving him the necklace. Oh. Is there a deleted scene maybe that's going to come in there late? No, you just give him the necklace. And then, it's a nice little cameo. Like, oh, okay. Yeah. When I first heard, because they made an announcement that he was going to be in it, I assumed he'd be part of their team or something. But, yeah, it was still...
that seems like that would be the case. But...
because they're getting everything else. Like, well, we could throw you in there, or we could throw in this hot, black English chick.
Yeah. I don't know. I do think it was ones like... Don't get me wrong, like, the cameo was enough.
Mm-hmm.
But if he was one of the main characters, I think that would have topped it off just that even more.
Maybe the next one.
I know he's kind of a forgotten character by now, but they brought what the heck's the actor's name from the second one? The funny black guy.
Ludacris.
No,
the character's
Ludacris.
Name, but Outcast.
No.
Was it Outcast?
No, not Ludacris. Ludacris is the short guy.
Oh, Tyrese.
Yeah, Tyrese. They brought him back, and he seemed like a guy that would be kind of a weird one to bring back because I think there was a time period when 2 came out, because number 1 did so well, and then when number 2 came out, it did really good, but it just didn't have that same, like, claim to fame that first one did. So sometimes they do the thing like, well, I know why. It's because they have Tyrese in it, not Vin Diesel. So he's bringing it down. And then, they tried Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. They're like, well, let's try something completely different since we can't really get Vin Diesel or Paul Walker. And then, lo and behold, it came around. But they brought back Tyrese. So once they brought him back and just kind of said, like, okay, it wasn't, we're not blaming anything on you anymore. You're a cool character. Everybody seems to actually like you.
He is one of the more funnier, like, I think he is one of the highlights of these movies because he's, like, one of the few characters that kind of acknowledges how ridiculous everything is.
Yeah, he does. Well, he is one of those kind of characters, like, he could be annoying. He's very close to being, like, stepping into the zone where he's just, like, kind of obnoxious, but he keeps just enough away from that just to stay totally funny.
He avoids being Chris Tucker.
Well, yeah, because Chris Tucker has that problem where he can sometimes go too far. Sometimes he'd be really funny, like a Rush Hour 1 or Money Talks, but then you get Rush Hour 3.
And Fifth Element.
Oh, yeah, Fifth Element where he's a little too extreme.
Where he's, like, cross-dressing and, like, all that shit, but yeah. But no, I thought that, this one right here, I will say, though, it is kind of like, at this point, they kind of know, they do know how over the top it is, but I will say it's kind of weird watching this progression. It's like this movie series, which is basically starts off as, like, an action crime drama about guys stealing DVD players. And then it works its way into being
Break on Wheels.
And then it reaches this point like, there's a fucking robot chasing us down the road. There's missiles. The Rock has a minigun. Like all this crazy.
Like it turned into. It went from being like an action drama to turning into really a full on action movie. Because that's what when I go to being like Lethal Weapon. Or being like Die Hard, or being, like a Terminator movie, not like sci-fi, but like it's a big blockbuster action movie now is what it is. And you have all these characters that you know and love, and then you start bringing in other famous actors, like in this one, you got Kurt Russell coming in. I mean, here's another Lethal Weapon kind of homage. Tony Jaa's in this one.
That was awesome.
And this is his first American movie, right?
I don't think it's his first American movie. I want to say it's his big theatrical release American movie. I want to say
let's say his first Hollywood movie.
Yeah, it's his first big Hollywood
so
movie.
It's just like Jet Li and Lethal Weapon 4. You know what I mean? Like that kind of brought him to America. That's what so now hopefully people who didn't know who Tony Jaa was prior might go like, oh, that guy seemed pretty badass. I wonder what else this guy's in. And then they'll see this huge list of movies that are all fucking well, not all of them. That most of them are pretty badass. Tony Jaa's always badass. Let me say that really quickly. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he's in movies where they're kind of like a little bit weirder.
Like Tony Jaa, like that was pretty awesome. They brought him into this movie, and I heard he was going to be in it, but then I kind of heard nothing about it, so I kind of forgot about it. And then watching the movie, I was like, oh, that guy's got some cool moves. Like, oh wait, that's fucking Tony Jaa. It took me a minute because he had like a bunch of tattoos and the douchebag mustache. So it took me a second to realize that was him. He had the evil mustache.
He really did. He had like the little thin pencil.
The Lee Van Cleef mustache from like Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah, it was cool. He had sweet fight scenes of Paul Walker and everything like that. And it was kind of. I like this movie. Kind of. Tony Jaa was Paul Walker's enemy, and then Vin Diesel got Jason Statham, which. Like, I thought that was really badass, but as watching the movie, I don't know if it just maybe never clicked to me. I'm like, that is technically almost the perfect matchup for Vin Diesel is Jason Statham, because they're about the same height, about same build. They both were in these car movies. Why would they not fight?
I'll be honest, I was surprised. It's a movie. It's a movie, but I was surprised Vin Diesel was giving The Rock so much of a fight. Like, for whatever reason, I can see Vin Diesel.
Talking about Jason Statham?
Jason Statham, that's what I meant. I could see Jason Statham giving Vin Diesel a fight, but for whatever reason, I just can't imagine. And I could see even Vin Diesel giving The Rock a fight, but I just had trouble seeing Jason Statham give The Rock a real fight. But in the movie, I was able to take it, but I was just like, you can't kill The Rock. What are you doing? Just, you should have just tried to blow the building up from the outside. That's the way you would have killed The Rock. Come on, let's be realistic now.
I don't know. That was a pretty sweet action scene, and I know because I know The Rock still has like 60 pounds on top of, Jason Statham. But it's Jason Statham. He's like a martial artist. I can believe that he could fight The Rock.
Well, Vin Diesel, they gave a good explanation. He wasn't just some guy who's like, austere cause, mate. They got across he was like some Black Ops, MI6 type shit. He was like an evil James Bond. So they actually gave a reason for him. But where before, because the movie has definitely progressed. It went from being kind of like low-level street thugs to cartels to like ex-military type shit. So now the only thing they got to tackle next is actual like military regimes, and then aliens from there.
Yeah, then it goes sci-fi. Then it's Fast and the Furious in space.
Fast and the Furious versus the Transformers.
Exactly.
Gonna get like The Rock getting into like a fist fight with Galvatron, and he wins.
Well, dude, Jason Statham almost played like the Terminator in this movie. Like that's how it kind of felt because he just kept coming back no matter what happened. It was just like you couldn't kill him. And next thing you know, he's back with a different gun, just like here hunting them down. And no matter what, you can't stop him.
I kind of like that rather than being kind of like we're hunting him down, is like they're trying to do this mission. And he was almost kind of like, now, I mean, I never played the game, but I know enough about it for the reference. He was kind of like Nemesis in like Resident Evil 3, where he would almost just kind of like come in unexpected when you didn't really see it coming.
Yeah.
They'd be trying to do something, and here he comes to fuck it up. Then he's gone. Then he comes back, you know?
No, that's actually a really good analogy because that's kind of how Nemesis is. You're trying to, get through Raccoon City here, and then Nemesis keeps showing up to fuck your day up again.
Yeah, so he's British Nemesis when it gets down to it.
But no, I thought the one thing that was about this movie, it was the most balanced, I think, at least out of like the last handful of them, between like car action and regular action. Because kind of the downfall that, like, even though I love the last 3 or so, the downfall of those ones is that there's like 3 car scenes in every single movie. And it almost becomes less and less. And don't get me wrong, the scenes that have cars in it are really badass, but you realize it's like, well, that's it. And there was even a part, I think it's number 6, it might be number 5, where they literally show up to one of those Fast and Furious areas. There's all like the people dancing around and stuff, and they're getting ready for this race. They're like, we got to win some cars. I think it might be actually number 5.
It's 5.
Yeah, they're like, we got to win some cars. Oh, okay. And then they go like, okay, we're going to race. And then it just cuts, and they're like driving back with the cars. I'm like,
good thing we got these cars, huh?
That could have been like a little 5-minute scene right there. It's like, why was that not? But where this one had at least about 6+ car scenes in it. And totally badass ones to top it off.
Well, each one seems to kind of change its format a little bit. Like this one was just a full-on action movie. That's what this is. This is gonna be a globe-trotting action movie. The last 2 were basically heist films. When it gets right down to it. 5 and 6 were heist films. 4 was still like, it was still a car movie because everything was involving cars. All the action was revolving around cars, but they were going against a cartel kind of guy. And then 1, 2, and 3 were all in the same vibe as that. So I think
even those ones, the nice thing about them, they all have different types of racing. Like where number 1 has like drag racing. Number 2 has kind of like that switch off racing. I don't know what you call it, like tag team racing. Number 3 is drift racing. Number 4 is kind of like crossing the border racing, I guess you could say. And then number 5 is like, well, at least the location changes. Now they're in Brazil. And then I remember number 6 focused on a lot of European kind of like style cars. And then this one, they're in the Middle East. That's almost like, it's kind of like gimmick into it.
Mm-hmm. The part of Eastern, I think when they're in like the foresty area, that was like they're like somewhere like in Eastern Europe, right? And then they went to Middle East.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly where they were there.
It was somewhere.
Something like that.
Somewhere not America.
Somewhere like maybe Russia or something, I don't know.
Yeah. And then they had, I will say, I was kind of waiting for like Paul Walker to die in the movie. I didn't really think that, I assumed he would just die at some point in the movie, and they give a big sad scene. And then like somewhere near the end, like for Paul, like just like, oh, for Paul Walker. But I didn't realize the way they would actually do it at the end of the movie, which at the very end,
it's really touching. I really, it brings a tear to your eye. It's just because the whole point of that movie, they keep mentioning like, like you better come back, you better not die out there. And the sad part too is you're like, in real life, you're like, I'm from the future. I know Paul Walker doesn't come back. That's like, it's just sad. It's like, I feel like I'm Bishop coming back in time to the X-Men and trying to tell them that like some of you aren't going to make it. And that's like the sad pull in that movie the whole time is just, that he doesn't make it, but like,
well, that was the thing. They kept on saying, it was almost like they looked at him like, no more funerals, okay? Because they'd always kind of look at him when they were saying that shit. Mm-hmm. So I thought they were almost really going to like, all right, I guess he's going to... I really assumed he was probably going to die, and I wasn't sure how, if it would be a car crash or what. But I just assumed he would, but then they do it in a really tasteful way, which I wasn't really so sure how they're going to go about it, but the way they did it was... not sure if you knew about some of the process where they filmed some of the extra scenes he wasn't able to do.
Yeah, but apparently like Terminator style.
Well, yeah, they got his brother to stand in for him, which his brother looks a lot like him, and they digitally like reworked his face in a certain way to make it look like Paul Walker. Which the very
That's
end,
like what they did in Terminator
when
4 with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
yeah, at the very end when we were driving down. I mean, maybe it happened in other parts of the movie, but the only part where I really noticed it was at the very end when maybe because I knew that like maybe because I knew that there's no way he probably filmed that right there. But when he pulls up next to Vin Diesel, like, "Hey Dom, you didn't think I was gonna let you get away with like without one more race, did you?" Like, in that the whatever reason, his face just looked off. I mean, it looked good enough to get the point across. And if I didn't know he was dead, it probably wouldn't even cross my mind.
Yeah.
But there's something about there's a little bit of an uncanny valley
When
thing
you're
to him.
because your brain's looking for it.
Yeah, and I can't really place my finger on what it was exactly. But when he pulls up next to him, and even there's even a weird audio cut. It's like, "Hey, Dom." When he pulls up to him, like it sounds weird for a minute. If you kind of, I don't know, I caught that the first time around.
Well, the other part too is like there's the scene where they're all sitting on the beach too. That's not Paul Walker either.
He's at a distant shot. You never see him at a close shot. It's when you're
no, and he doesn't have any lines or anything right there and whatnot. And you can just see everybody's just sitting there sad, like,
and they're all looking at like
forcing us to shoot this scene about our dead friend.
And it's one of those things. It's like they're speaking of. I mean, as an audience member, it all makes sense. But in the context of the movie, it still works. When you think about it for a second, like they're all talking about him in past tense, and you're like, you think something like, "Dude, he's right fucking there." You know?
But he's not there. That's the thing about it. It's like
it is one of those sad things.
Once again, like Fast and Furious doesn't have like an exact time period it takes place in. For all we know, it takes place. Vin Diesel's a time traveler.
He's like a fucking time lord, you know.
Yeah, he's fucking like
just take that fucking just take that like Charger he drives, throw that in the intro to like Doctor Who going down like the fucking like time tunnel.
No, we'll make it like Back to the Future. We'll make
I was gonna see how long before you pulled out. Like, no, fuck Doctor Who.
Fuck Doctor Who. I don't want no fucking Doctor Who. Let's do something. Let's do a cool time traveling movie like Back to the Future or Terminator or something like that. It was the other car Doc made.
Yeah, okay, there you go. That's a good point. Yeah. No, he's Doc before back when he was young.
And he traveled what to the future as Vin Diesel.
Yeah. That's when he was young. That's back when he was young, and he went into the future as Vin Diesel.
What Doc does, he invented time travel.
That's the reason
went back in time to find his younger self, and then sent his younger self into the future to enjoy life.
And he constantly shaves his head. He doesn't want people to know he has gray hair, so he's constantly shaving his head.
But that send-off, spoilers kind of in this movie, like, it really is like the most touching scene. It's just like, you know, Dom goes to leave, he's driving away, and then all of a sudden Paul Walker pulls up. They have this little moment together, and then they just start, you know, racing down the hill. It shows scenes from some of the older movies of, you know, Paul Walker and Vin Diesel together and all them being friends and family and so on. And they're going down this road, and then all of a sudden it splits into a Y, and Paul Walker goes to the left and Vin Diesel goes to the right. Camera pans up really high into the sky. Mm-hmm. And it's just almost like there's this split made.
Yeah.
You know, like they both went in different directions in life, you know. It's sad, and it really brought a tear to my eye. I was just like,
that says a lot because you don't really. Did it actually bring a tear to your eye, or did it almost bring a tear?
It did in the movie theaters. It brought a tear to my eye multiple times. It was just like Paul Walker, and because what's the sad thing too is because Paul Walker was one of those guys who kind of he reminds me a lot of Keanu Reeves. Not only the fact that Fast and the Furious is really just Point Break, but like he was one of those kind of guys. He has like the same acting style as Keanu Reeves. Like he has like that whoa. I'm a surfer dude. I am an FBI agent. Mm-hmm. You know, and people used to kind of give him shit back in the day for like his acting, just like Keanu Reeves did. And then finally, as time went on, he got, you know, recognized as being a pretty good actor, just like Keanu Reeves. And then he finally has to pass away. Just that's also such a sad thing too.
Something I want to say about Keanu Reeves. I mean, he's still here with us today, but something I didn't know about him. That guy has so much tragedy in his life, and like apparently. It's I don't remember what the day was exactly, but apparently when he was younger, his sister died of leukemia, and then I want to say right when he was filming Matrix 1, I want to say his parents died.
Oh wow!
Right to that same time, back to back, I want to say like. When he was filming Matrix 2 to the same year. This is just going off what I actually just heard this last night. I don't know if this is true. This could be total bullshit from what I hear. But when he was filming Matrix 2, the same day his wife had a miscarry, and then the same day when his film Matrix 3, another year later, his wife died in a car crash. So
Oh my gosh.
I don't know how if that's true or not, but I got it after, and then plus on top of that, he started a fundraiser in his sister's name, so he doesn't get any tax cut breaks. Anyway, it's a total nonprofit organization to fight leukemia. So when you hear that kind of shit, it really makes you feel bad about talking any shit you do about Keanu Reeves' acting.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just like
Because I've made so many jokes about his acting in Dracula, and then I hear that.
Dracula's about the only one because a lot of his other movies it sort of works. It's not that big of a deal. Like I don't know, in Speed it doesn't bother me. And even in Point Break, the weird thing about him is he almost has this accent like he should be one of Bodhi's friends for life.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason he came from back east and he has this California accent. That's like the only thing that's kind of weird. But other than that, it's just in Dracula, because in Dracula it just feels like he's fucking like if Ted kind of grew up and somehow, some way went fucking back in time again,
time
and got
machine
stuck in like 1890. Fuck, what?
Dracula time. We'll just call it Dracula.
1890X. There we go. So he's back then. It's just kind of like, especially that part where he's in the carriage and just nothing seems to faze him, though. Like there's all this like really weird magical shit going on.
Like dogs with blue glowing eyes run by like through blue fire. And he's like, huh, that's fucked up. And then he's looking down like that, like cliff that looks higher than anything you've ever seen in National Geographic. Like,
just kind of like, I'll be damned.
Okay, what about that? And right when he gets onto the carriage, maybe it was just like, Francis Ford Coppola's directing. Because I think even as someone as talented as him, I think there's some days where he's like, fuck it, good enough, I mean, apparently at some point he was directing a scene of Apocalypse Now from a hot tub. I don't know if that's true, but you hear that kind of shit that like...
That sounds like a 70s thing, so I can believe it.
He like wouldn't get out of this hot tub in his trailer, and he was like, he had monitors set up and he was telling him how to direct where to go from the hot tub. I don't know if that's true. It sounds so fucking over the top, but at the same time, I could see that regardless, with a big fucking glass of wine. Like, no. No. Have Brando be naked right here, pouring water on his head, and do it again, slower.
No, I can totally see that. And maybe he was fucking like hot tubbing it then in Dracula as well, but that's the one places where I feel like nowadays it would seem kind of like a cliche thing to do, but like I think that Johnny Depp would have been perfect right there for John Harker in that Dracula movie. Not saying anything against Keanu Reeves, because I love Keanu Reeves as an actor. I just that's like the one role that like that might have not been the right one for him. And it's not like he's really like terrible. It's not like that brings down the movie for me. It just kind of has this weird feeling like.
Yeah, it does feel like a clash of times, because like Winona Ryder, that's Winona Ryder in the movie, right?
Yeah, she's in that one too.
She works fine. Everybody else, like
Anthony
Gary
Hopkins
Oldman,
is great as Van Helsing.
Hopkins works fine. Gary Oldman's
works amazing as Dracula.
Yeah. One of the creepiest parts of the movie to me, maybe I don't know of other people, but it's when he actually is like some kind of bat creature. He's not attacking anybody. He's just standing in the corner of the room, just as some big kind of like black bat creature just kind of yelling at him. That's probably one of those chilling parts of the movie to me. He's not even really doing anything, but just talking to him. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Just kind of standing there.
Mm-hmm. But back to the Furious.
Back to Fast and Furious. Scene was just totally badass. It was almost reminds me of like kind of like the one way you could like the one upper to like Mission Impossible 4. But it's except for Mission Impossible 4, it's like Tom Cruise is actually outside on that really tall building. I know it's a different town, but it's in the Middle East. There are tall, fancy buildings in the Middle East. But it's just when they get in that, I don't even know what kind of car it was. It was like, it's like so expensive. It's like poor people aren't meant to know what kind of car this is.
I think it was one of those things like that was, if I had to guess, that's probably something they had to look up. It's so expensive. Like they even said in the movie, like, there's only 3 of these things. This asshole keeps it locked up,
It's like, you don't keep a beast in a cage.
That's something I want to say before we go off. I want to say this movie does have like some like cheesy dialogue, but the only way you can make that cheesy dialogue work is you get guys like Vin Diesel, Kurt Russell, Jason Statham, The Rock, because only they can say these lines, and if you give them shit about it, they're just gonna straight up beat the fuck out of you. So
see, I like those lines. I know there's a lot of people out there that nowadays it's like the thing to do is to bitch about that kind of stuff because these type of action movies a lot of times are looked down upon, and there's still a big enough audience for them, but there's a lot of people that they like their serious, realistic, down-to-earth action movies that I find, it was a big thing in the 2000s to have a lot of those movies, and to me, I'm not saying there's some of them that aren't good, but it's just, they're not nearly as fun. They're not as memorable, and I have a feeling that a lot of those movies will be pretty darn forgotten, in 10 more years. They're probably already kind of forgotten now.
I like those lines too, but the thing is, I think you just need to get the right actor for them, and I think sometimes they get like, I saw like, what was it? There is this. I was looking forward to it because it was. I'm just a sucker for sci-fi, but there's like a movie. There's a movie called, I want to say, like Lockout or something like that. It was a Guy Pearce movie. Basically, Guy Pearce goes to space prison to break someone out, and it sounds like an awesome concept.
Oh, I've seen that movie before. Not nearly as cool as I think I remember it being, though.
It wasn't as cool as I really thought. When I heard the concept, I didn't see the trailer or anything. I just heard the concept. Then I went into like, oh, it's PG-13. We'll see what happens. And then walking out of it, like, okay, it seems kind of like starting off all right, but then kind of just derails and just gets kind of, they have a lot of cutaways. It was kind of a little cheesier. Like that right there. Like he had a lot of those kind of one-liners, but it didn't really work. And I think you kind of need, I mean, Guy Pearce, he's a great actor.
Well, Guy Pearce is like a super actor, but still.
But you need, I think to pull those kind of lines off, you need someone really big and fucking macho, like Bruce Willis, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like Vin Diesel. You need somebody with that kind of presence. And I think that's the reason why a lot of them don't do those lines, because you get like, because sometimes, you'll get like someone like, I mean, he's still in some good action movies, but you'll get someone like Nicolas Cage, and when he says some lines like that, it just sounds kind of weird. Like, dude, you're Nicolas Cage. But if you get someone who looks like he takes punches to the face for breakfast, like an Arnold Schwarzenegger or like Kurt Russell, there it sounds like, okay, that works. I could believe that.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean there, and that's what it does. It does take the right actor, or else it just, or else then the songs they come across as just weird and awkward almost.
Kind of like that Guy Pearce in Space movie.
Yeah, because I remember that one. I think I saw it was on like TV, and I just read the synopsis. I'm like, that sounds badass. So then kind of sat there and watched it. It's like, it's got Guy Pearce and everything. And it's just like, oh. Well.
I saw it in theaters. I paid full price to see that in theaters, and I kind of regretted it. But whatever,
I don't know.
You learn what not to do.
Hopefully there was good trailers.
I don't remember what they were, but maybe there was.
Hopefully. But,
I remember I was kind of surprised, and we went as far to have him punch Maggie Grace in the face to like make her change her hair color. But
oh yeah, that was kind of cool.
You're like, I hate that chick from Lost. Punch her in the face.
I didn't know she was in Lost, but I just thought that was kind of cool.
Liam Neeson's daughter. That was Liam Neeson's.
Oh, there you go.
Taken. That's what happens when you like fucking twist your dad's arm into going to fucking France.
But back to Fast and Furious 7. That part though, where they are jumping that $3.5 million car, like through out the window and through another building, and then once again to another building, almost like, I know that's kind of like an Indiana Jones thing to like.
I was thinking that same thing. Indiana Jones
a little bit too far, because it's sort of like in Temple of Doom. They go off this one huge cliff, and then they come down, over the waterfall, and then they do it again. And then they do it a third time, and I think that third time is the one part where it's just like, okay, I can believe they could totally survive it once. That's totally fine. A second time, that's one thing. But then the third time, you're like, I don't know, that's a lot of waterfalls to go, and, the chances, I don't know. That's a little bit breaking the barrier. Even though I know Temple of Doom is my favorite Indiana Jones movie. That one scene is just the one part where it's just like, okay. And then they kind of recreate a scene like that in the fourth Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
But in this one, it was fine, I think, because it was out one building into another, and it only went to 2. If it went to 3, if for some reason maybe they jumped it and tried to land it on the ground next, that might have been where it was too much.
I thought it was 3 buildings. Wasn't it 3 buildings?
Yeah, but it technically was only 2 jumps. 3 buildings, 2 jumps. You see what I mean?
And then the fall of the ground, the thing had to do, right?
Yeah, but they bailed out, so that's like fine.
I will say that whole like that literally did come to mind was Indiana Jones when I saw that.
Oh yeah, I literally was like Temple of Doom came to my mind right then. I'm just like,
and
this is either really sweet or too much.
And I could only imagine, maybe it's just me, but whenever there is like a scene, we're like, are we pushing the realms of believability here when we have like a repeat scene like this? Like the filmmakers and producers just go like Indiana Jones, like in unison and nod.
Yeah, it's like, that really sweet scene in Indiana Jones? Let's do that.
You mean number 4? No. We're talking about Temple of Doom. No.
Temple deal with fucking a classic there. Short round. Doesn't everybody wish they had a short round? I mean, I used to have a short one back in the day, but they kind of outlawed that sort of thing, you know, having a boy that you didn't really pay to do, you know, to carry your luggage and, you know, drive your car and everything.
It's okay. I sold him for heroin.
I like how, like, Errol Flynn had, like, a couple short rounds.
Really?
I say a couple because they're kind of, like, expendable. One of them literally, like, they're in, like, the jungles of, not Australia, New Zealand.
Uh-huh.
And they're out going to, like, Errol Flynn had this gold mine at some point that never really panned out, but they had to, like, you know, walk through the jungles to get there with his team of slaves because it was that time period in Australia.
Yeah.
And he had a short round, and they literally got attacked by natives. And he's like, and this kid was just, I looked over to the left, and he was just impaled there by a bunch of spears on the ground.
Oh, time to get another one. Ha-ha, I'm Errol Flynn.
One of his poor slaves, they were crossing this lake once, and they got, like, taken down by an alligator.
You hear that kind of shit right there. And you know, probably at the time when the book was written, he probably didn't write it like, oh, poor Mugwai, he was my best friend or whatever. You know, he wrote it as like, shit happens. I got another one the next day. Ha ha.
Well, it was like he was saddened. It just, you know, it was that sort of
thing.
It
ruined his afternoon. It wasn't. It's okay. I just did some swashbuckling.
It was Australia in, like, you know, the turn of the century. Well, that turn of the century.
It's okay, I just did some swashbuckling with some darn dirty savages and then made love to a woman that night, and I was fine.
Let's think about Errol Flynn's book, though. You like his life before he gets to the movies is so extremely exciting that by the time he gets to the movies, these movies are really awesome. These stories are fantastic, but they almost just don't compare to, like, his life prior to that. It's just like, well, your life prior to this was actually more exciting than any of your movies. And your movies are like some of my favorite movies out there. So it's just kind of like, I'm surprised nobody's capitalized on that, on Errol Flynn's, you know, book and said, hey, let's make that into a full-on movie, like just like his first, you know, 20, 25 years of life or so. Like that right there would be like the sweetest story, and just have it end like he gets to Hollywood, because we all know what happens from that point on. You know what I mean? Like that's.
Well, I think it's the thing about that is, I'm not trying to be a dick here, but I think a lot of people this day and age probably don't know who Errol Flynn really is.
No, yeah.
So that's probably
he's that kind of guy where you gotta go, you know, he played Robin Hood. Who? You know, Russell Crowe? No, not Russell Crowe. Kevin Costner? No, not Kevin Costner.
The Fox?
That Fox in the Disney movie? You're like, no, before that, the Merry Adventures? No, not that one either. And then you're like, you know, the 1938 one, 37 one. And they're just like, yeah, no, didn't see that.
Yeah, you know, I think that's the only thing that's probably stopped it from happening is that.
But you know, think about like even 30 years ago. Like, I'm surprised they didn't do that movie like in the 70s or something like that.
Maybe. When did he die?
1950, maybe 1950 exactly or so.
What?
No, he died when he was 50. No. So I think it was somewhere like maybe 1954, 55.
Was it of like something like just like a accident, or was it like cancer?
No, he like drank too much alcohol, and finally the liver gave out on him and everything.
He probably died with a smile too, with a glass of like fucking whiskey, like scotch in his hand. Like, this is how real men go.
Well, it kind of was once, because like his life was ones where like, I mean, it did kind of dip down a little bit towards the end, you know, because he was trying to direct some of these movies and the funding wasn't coming in and whatnot, and he was kind of taking these risks. Yeah, but like not nearly as bad as Orson Welles, but it was that sort of thing. Like in that 50 years of his life, like he accomplished like more than somebody would accomplish in 150 years of like their life. It's like that's how impressive it was. Mm-hmm. Really, that book is now my book that I hold up as like autobiography books. Like it's my like high standard. Like, can you compete with this book? Because this book is like, I put the dirt up as the thing before, but like this one man can outbeat 4 other guys in a book of like how extreme their life can be and how exciting an adventure and, you know, adventure of the high seas and gold panning and, you know, or not gold panning, gold mining. And then, you know, we've getting stuck in like the Japanese-Chinese war and, you know, traveling across the Middle East and stuff, and like there's just so much adventure in there. And it's the guy's autobiography. That's what makes it so badass.
Might happen eventually. They might have to do like some kind of, you know what, I could see something happening. I don't know. They're rehashing everything. I guess if some movie came out that really made a nod to kind of like old swashbuckling movies, like what he used to make, and they were like, "Well, here's the shit that inspired it," and like come out with a re-release of it. Maybe then that would get like a big enough push to make like the autobiography of the guy of him actually. But who
Well,
knows?
there's so many of these kind of movies that do kind of come out. Like I'm gonna use this one as an example. What the fuck was it called? That Martin Scorsese kids movie, or not? Or, I mean, it was like the Martin.
Igor or
No, it was
Hugo?
yeah, Hugo. That's almost an example of sort of. I mean, I know it's kind of like that, but like it's about somebody that people really don't generally know who it is unless you're into filmmaking. You know what I mean? And that movie
Hmm.
worked. So
I didn't see that one. I wanted to.
it's not bad. I don't know. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. Like all the
It's not Wolf of Wall Street.
no, it is nowhere even close to Wolf of Wall Street.
I just think it's kind of funny that Martin Scorsese says, I'm going to make a kids movie. I don't know if he ever has before, but it sounds so interesting. It's like he's made PG-13 movies, but him saying like, I'm going to take a stab at a kids movie.
Those PG-13 movies are almost rare to find too.
I'm surprised Aviator's PG-13.
I know. It's like that's like one of the ones I think of, but they always feel like they're R-rated movie. I think because they're so like adult-oriented movies. I mean, like it's a serious story about a real man, who's got problems, who does this, who has this, and so on. It's sort of like Malcolm X. Like that movie always throws me out. That's like, oh, that's PG-13. That always feels like it's rated R because it's just
Especially
such a serious drama.
For how many times to say nigger in that movie, and just given everything else that happens in that movie, I'm surprised it walks away with just PG-13. But maybe it's one of those things like, oh, we want to shut the classrooms, so like pull a few strings.
Yeah, I think somehow, some way, that's kind of how it works out. But no, that Errol Flynn though, I think it's one of those ones. I think you could bring it back. I mean, you don't have to call it like the autobiography, like the life of like Errol Flynn. You can call it some other weird name, and then
advertise it as something else, and then
just advertise it as this like this guy's adventure, and just sell it off like almost like like obviously older people are going to understand that it's Errol Flynn, but just to like a younger audience, just be like, this sounds just like some cool news story, and then just it happens to be a true story
at the very end. Yeah, just drop that
like
shit.
One of those ones like, yeah, just dramatize it and whatnot. Like, oh, I think it'd totally work.
Drop that shit at the end, like this shit's based on a true story, bitch.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like
exact words to have at the end of the movie.
I mean, there's the other one you were talking about. There was that Tim Burton's Big Eyes movie. That's kind of another kind of like very hidden like if they don't remember Errol Flynn, they definitely don't remember this lady as much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually
there is movies. I guess I'm trying to pull movies that are in a similar kind of field.
People are making a big deal about that movie over here because that lady was mainly from San Francisco, and she's still alive today. And I actually walked by Fisherman's Wharf, a part of Fisherman's Wharf the other day, by past an art gallery, and she apparently still has some new art stuff, new art out, and they had one like displayed. It was like a whole gallery of that lady's stuff. It's like, oh shit, she's still at it. Okay.
Well, that's like milk. Because when I was in San Francisco and they were shooting that movie, that was a really big deal. Everywhere else in the movie, or in the U.S., people fucking hated it. They're like, fucking milk, fucking queer. Put his movie in that 99-cent bin at Blockbuster. We don't want to see it.
There's such a huge
at Blockbuster. There was like literally like 50 copies of that movie for like 99 cents. The movie came out like 2 weeks prior to this on DVD, and like they were just like, nope, not gonna sell it.
Now, I remember when,
and it was a good movie too.
I only saw parts of Milk. I remember back when, this is gonna sound bad. I remember when Brokeback Mountain first came out, I was against it, not because it was about gay guys or anything, but I was just kind of like, I was at that point where all the movies I liked weren't getting any acknowledgement. So I'm like, people just want to see it just because it's about two gay guys. They don't give a... If it wasn't about two gay guys, no one would give a shit. I'm sure it's probably a good movie. If I watched it now, I'd probably have... I saw like about 15 minutes of it and I was bored. I got to watch it again at some point. But I wasn't even against like the whole gay aspect. I was just irritated by how like every movie that came out of... Every movie that was getting... This is back when I gave a shit about the Academy Awards. This is like back in like high school and early college. Like every movie I liked wasn't getting a single like nod or any recognition or anything like that. So that's just like... that's where I almost took it out on the movie itself. But now I'd probably look back on the movie. It's probably a decent movie. Have you seen Brokeback?
Yeah, it's probably... I never have. It's just like I'll say this. Like a lot of times, like whenever movies get that big like buzz, you always just kind of wonder, like, is it really getting all that because it's doing something slightly controversial? And I say slightly controversial,
yeah,
because it's not that. I mean, cowboys are mostly associated with conservative rednecks,
Uh-huh.
Republicans, so on, and then they're doing something gay, but it's not like it's like full on like, because when somebody described it to me, it's like, yeah, it's not like it's like they're really like showing anything like extreme in it or something like that, like some hardcore movie.
Well, somebody's gonna.
It's just kind of
I cut you off.
they're like in a tent and just one day it's just kind of like, yeah, Steve, I'm kind of bored, you know, just keep warm for a second. As long as we don't make eye contact, it won't be gay.
What I saw like 15, 20 minutes of it, and it was basically, I was bored by it. It was basically two guys out in the woods, just like, yeah, was shooting at a coyote today. I had a huge ball sack, but I missed it. Yeah, tired of eating fucking beans. Yeah, me too. And they later they end up in the tent. They struggle around. They end up like, come on, just once, one more, just one more. And then the next day, like, all right, we
Then
can't.
the coyote jumps on the back, and they're just doing like a train bang.
Has those big tanuki nut sacks like they were fucking
Just like
wine.
slapping up against, like,
Just hear that.
If somebody told me that, they're like, "Oh yeah, there's a part where they have like a three-way with a coyote." I'd be like, "Whoa, that's fucking ballsy."
Literally,
Maybe it does deserve an
literally
Academy
ballsy.
Award. Yeah,
Just the coyote.
they're like, no, literally ballsy.
No,
But
so
it's
after,
just one of those ones like I've kind of learned that a lot of times those Academy Award winning movies, I already know they're not really like that's. It's just not a genre I care for as much. They're just gonna be movies that they're heavily dramas, and they mostly always feel like they're trying to win an award, and I can see through it. It's like they don't happen to be like they just happen to shoot this movie. I'm not saying this against all of them, but like a lot of them have this feel like they're literally trying to make a equation of like, how do I win an Academy Award?
that's how I feel about a lot of them. But I'll say this: like, I don't really take the Academy Awards seriously anymore, and nor do I really just kind of really sit there going, man, I really hope this wins. Like if I hear one of them's nominated, like, oh, I like that movie, I hope that one makes it. But over the last couple of years, they haven't. There's some movies I wish got a nod, but there are other movies that I'm like, oh, that actually won, or that was actually nominated. Like Argo was a good movie. That wasn't the one I wished it won, but it was still a really good movie. But Django Unchained.
That was a good one. But I just remember there being like 10 other movies that were like so much better than Argo.
Well, Django Unchained actually won like best screenplay, which I was surprised about that. I just thought they were going to give him the nod. The fact that Quentin Tarantino won best screenplay was pretty.
I think because
awesome.
he's getting older, so he's kind of getting the Martin Scorsese treatment.
And
they're finally
then Departed, which is, I mean, I know that's not his best work, but that's probably one of my favorite.
Still a good one.
That's
I'd still say almost like top 5 best of his.
I can watch that. That's literally one of those movies that I could just put on the background and just listen to because I love that movie. It's such a good movie to me. And then there's some other good movies that were not, like Birdman was actually a good movie. I liked Birdman. I don't know if it was my favorite movie of the year, but it was definitely a good movie. So
that's all I have to say. Was Snowpiercer on any of those lists?
No, it wasn't though. That's the thing.
Exactly.
They really need to do
so good.
That's the thing right there. What they really should do, rather than saying like, and I'm kind of taking something Kevin Smith said here, but he said, and I think this is a really good point. Instead of going like the best movie, and that could only be a movie of this kind of caliber or whatever, they should have like, okay, your best. Start off somewhere like, all right, this is your best drama, this is your best comedy, this is your best genre. You know what I mean? Like, kind of work your way in that way, because he mentioned other movies. Like, he said something to the effect of like, it's fucking bullshit that a movie like Guardians of the Galaxy or Winter Soldier won't even get looked at, because those are still really well written movies, still very well made movies, but because they're not controversial and they're he mentioned that. I'm like, that's a pretty good point right there.
If that raccoon was maybe fucking like doing a train bang with somebody.
if the raccoon was fucking the tree.
Star-Lord,
if it was
if Star-Lord, Groot, and the raccoon were all fucking each other in the back of a spaceship, that might get it.
And if like the old fashion conservative like Thrax the Destroyer found out, he would kill everybody on board. Says, we are a family. This can't happen. I will kill this family if this happens again. There's Guardians too.
And then they have some weird mutant child because for some reason Groot could get impregnated. And that's what the second one was. And you're like, that's fucking a weird story. Yeah, well, guess what? Academy Award winner.
It's like this fucking just ball of tree with twigs sticking out of it.
It's like, I'm a tree coon human. Kill me now.
It hurts to live. Every breath,
But-
it's like razor blades in my lungs. I'm not meant to exist. Then we bring in the topic of is suicide or assistant suicide okay? So not only are we
Yeah.
talking, we're not only were we talking on like gay rights, we're also talking about like gay couples adopting, as well as pre-producing, as well as suicide. That's you got 4 topics right there, all Academy Award nominations.
Well, yeah, because that's what I mean. It's like mostly all the movies always win Academy Awards. It's almost like they have like a cheater gimmick to them. And I was just like, I had to kind of like throw that in there. But there's always just something. It's kind of like, I think like when The Artist won. And, it's not like the movie was like a bad movie, but it was more like they did the cheater gimmick of like, we're gonna make a silent picture. And and like if people enjoy this silent picture, it's just like, oh, they're ballsy for doing a silent picture. That still has a bit of dialogue in it, but
We're going to take a quick break right here. But now a word from our buddies at Painted Black Podcast. Take a listen.
I'm Pete, that's Brian. Yeah. There's Lou. We are Painted Black Podcast. We are Painted Black Comics.
If you could describe the show, what would you describe it?
Horribly offensive.
Balls to the walls.
A good time.
I don't know. Unprofessional. I wouldn't be surprised if fucking Barney heard some screaming from next door. Right?
Hey, yo, Fred, I got kicked out of the house. Can I stay with you guys for a little bit? No, Barney. We're not friends like that.
You better go stay with Kazoo.
Yeah. Dum-dum, you should have said yes to your wife. Can you imagine what Disney World would have been like had he lived longer?
No Jews. That's the primary difference.
I feel he funded the Nazis in some way. I can't prove it.
The first fucking model of their helmet had ears on it.
Oh, the Basketeers coming over the hill. What the fuck's going on?
Dosan sounds like a Renaissance painter.
He was the fifth Ninja Turtle. He wasn't right in the head. They didn't really bring him out too much. I'd like to fight the foot.
That's probably why they had all those stupid ass toppings.
Bubble gum.
Fuck, who let those Santos order the pizza?
I want
again?
stink bug!
Who put Legos on this shit? Can I give you money for sex?
I would enjoy making a transaction for a blowjob.
Can I get a receipt with that pussy?
Oh, yeah. How do I follow this?
Do you wash those briefs with starch?
Make that booty clap. Why don't ya?
Let's hear Randy Newman doing the song for Pompeii.
Oh, he's on the spot.
Whoa, it's smoke. Volcano. Whoa, it's the smoke. Vesuvius.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Laura bought those for
Where'd you
me.
get those?
I don't know, Laura, where'd you get
Where
the Dragon
at?
Balls at? She went out across the world and found them.
No, really. I gotta know.
Where'd you
I
get
gotta
them? She's not gonna say. She says you gotta get a Dragon Radar
know.
first.
Oh, that's bullshit.
But yeah, fucking Dragon Balls.
I'm gonna Google that.
You'll be able to find something cool like that. Okay, stay open. There we go. Okay, but like, movies winning and stuff like that. I just look at like the artist. It's sort of like it just kind of had like a cheat factor. I just felt like it only won because it was a silent picture. You know what I mean? Like that was a cheating thing. Not like it was necessarily a bad movie, but it was one of those movies where like you kind of watch and go, "Oh, that was good." I mean, maybe watched again sometime down the line, but
Another example, like it didn't win, but it was still nominated, was like something kind of like Lincoln. Like, yeah, it wasn't a bad movie, but only someone with the status of Steven Spielberg can really pull that off. So it takes Steven Spielberg and then someone of his caliber to get that many big actors to play that many historical characters in this really long, drawn-out movie with this really nice production value. So I think that's kind of one of those things like that had like, that has like give me an Oscar.
that's a great example of a
written
movie.
all over.
Like I enjoyed that movie, but I will probably never ever watch that movie. Ever
Yeah, same
again.
here.
I mean, like I'm not saying it
Same
wasn't
here.
good, but it is literally one of those movies you watch once, you enjoy the time you spent with it, but it is no Close Encounters, it is not Jaws, and it is definitely not Jurassic Park. That's all I have to say. It's just like that.
I just like
It's like Amadeus. Have you ever seen, or not Amadeus? I mean, Amistad
Amistad.
It's the one.
I don't know if I've seen Amistad. I've seen
No,
Amadeus.
no, 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 Amadeus,
is
not
the
Amadeus.
king.
It just
Amistad.
happens to have the same starting like letters. Amistad is the one Steven Spielberg did, which it's about like pretty much the slaves coming to America. And that part, I mean, I say part's like cool, but that part's kind of like it's historical and it's kind of like good drama and stuff like that. But then it turns into like a courtroom movie for like the next like hour and a half, and that part's just kind of like, oh, I'd rather. I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of like you watch it once and it's a good movie, but it doesn't have like that like Schindler's List or Saving Private Ryan kind of like historical movie that you'd want to watch again and again.
Well, I'll say that Spielberg almost seems to have three different chambers. He seems to have your like very entertaining, like just your Raiders of the Lost Ark, your Jaws, your like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that kind of stuff. And then he has his mid-range, which I'm going to say that's Munich, that's Saving Private Ryan, and then he has something to the effect of like
the heavy dramas
like The Color Purple or Lincoln. Some like in Schindler's List. Even though Schindler's List is a good movie, I still would consider it more probably in the vein.
I still say it's in the heavy drama section.
So I think that those are kind of like and like the thing about him is he can make a movie that's totally ass backwards from the other one, but it would still kind of have that Spielberg kind of quality to it. You'd still say, because he's made so many movies by this point that it's weird knowing, oh yeah, the guy who made Schindler's List is also the same guy who did, I never saw it, but I want to, that CG 1010 movie.
Yeah, and he also made 1941 of like Jim Belushi in it.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So it's kind of weird when you think about it like that, like because he still is one of my favorite directors, and it sounds kind of weird and stereotypical when you say like, oh yeah, Steven Spielberg is one of your favorites, but when you think about it for a minute, like, well, no, that makes sense given how like versatile he is and everything he does.
No, I think about it because I'm like, my favorite movie of all time is a Steven Spielberg movie, you know. So it's like Jurassic Park. I like that movie so much.
If you don't have at least,
it's Steven Spielberg.
Chances are everybody has, if they have their list of their 10 favorite movies, Spielberg is probably at least one or two of those.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. It's like I couldn't see why not, But that's like I've come to kind of accept it because there's like a period where you sort of like you almost do the thing where like you don't want to say Steven Spielberg's like in like maybe your top 5 or 10 list like when you're around like other like young filmmakers because for some reason you feel like you're gonna be put down, but then you come to a point and go, no, there's a reason why because he makes fucking badass movies. That's why people like him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like you don't need to put a bunch of artsy fucking directors on there just to make your list sound better. No, put the directors who actually make the best movies, you know what I mean? Like the ones you like the most. Not necessarily the best, but the ones that personally affect you. And guess what? Steven Spielberg's one of those directors.
He is.
That's why I look, I'm like, him, Kevin Smith, Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez. You can go on forever.
Recently, it's the guy who did I always forget the name of his name. The guy who did The Last Stand and The Good, the Bad, the Weird.
Oh, fuck, what the hell's that guy's name? I know. And the Devils or the.
I saw the Devil.
I am the Devil. I saw the Devil. I am the Devil. I saw the Devil.
yeah, I saw the Devil. I always forget that dude's name.
It's like Kim Woon.
Something to that effect. I just got one of his other movies. I haven't seen all of his movies. By this point, I've seen 4 of his movies. All of them are fantastic. And I saw A Bittersweet Life, and I got that a little bit ago. And when that movie first opened up, because I didn't really know a whole lot about it, I just know it has the guy who, he's in all of his movies just about. He's the guy who plays the bad in The Good, the Bad, the Weird. He plays the main character in I Saw the Devil, and he's also plays the thing that probably more Americans probably know him as is Shadow Storm from G.I. Joe movies.
And that's the same guy that's in Snowpiercer, right?
No, that's not the same guy. The guy in Snowpiercer is the guy from...
Is that the good?
No. The guy, that's actually, he's not even I got these two guys confused. I felt kind of like a dick for doing that. He's actually, he plays, I got him confused. There's the guy that plays the weird in Good, the Bad, the Weird. And then there's the guy who plays the villain in I Saw the Devil. I thought they were the same guy. They're two separate guys. The guy from I Saw the Devil, that's the guy from the original Old Boy. And he's in Snowpiercer. I thought those were the two. I thought those were the same.
Okay, well, yeah, I feel like the two, like, yeah, all them
They look the
Koreans look the same, I guess.
Well, I was just kind of like, well, he's
Well,
kind
it's
of.
like he had like a beard and long hair, so I just assumed it was just a different.
He has
look for
long
him.
hair. He looks kind of haggard, like he doesn't want to be there. Those two guys have that look throughout those movies. Must be the same guy. They're Korean, But
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
but well, that is the guy. The guy in Snowpiercer, that is the bad guy from I Saw the Devil, as well as the original Old Boy, which makes sense because the guy who directed Snowpiercer did direct Old Boy. So, but
Oh, that's the same director.
yeah.
That's cool.
but
I got a couple other of his movies that I've yet to watch, but they're sitting there in a ginormous stack of. I don't know. I've just learned that I don't even know. I got these stacks of games, stacks of comics, stacks of movies, and I just like. There's just no time to look at them all. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
You're sad British boy about it. No, but the reason I was a little late recording the podcast today is because I just got this big ass stack of comics. It was staring me down like, fuck you, I'm gonna win, So I'm gonna beat this stack of comics. I'm just gonna fucking sit here and crank through it, and that's what I've been doing. That's why I was a little late. Like, oh fuck, we record in 10 minutes. But
I know that's my goal right now is just to I'm like, before you buy any new comics, crank through at least like 80% of the ones that are in that stack.
they keep growing.
Yeah.
And I get this.
Wait,
Go ahead.
you go to buy it because something comes up that like you have to buy it. Like, I mean, now somebody will probably be like, you don't technically have to buy it. I'm like, yes, but there's some that are on this list of I call have to buy, must buy stuff. So then you go to buy those, but the next thing you know, you see something else you want. So now you've bought two other things that you really didn't need to buy. You went there for the one you had to buy. Now you got two other ones. So then it makes the stack grow even more.
My have to buys right now, that's like Scott Snyder Batman, American Vampire, East of West.
Scott Snyder.
Just Scott Snyder in general, I guess. I mean, I haven't got Wake. I'm gonna get that eventually, but that's just another $24 that's probably not going to get read for another like 3 months if I buy it now. So I'm just going to work that stack down first. But yeah, like just basically any Scott Snyder DC, basically East of West, Flash, and then Matt Fraction's Hawkeye. So yeah, but going back to what I was saying earlier though about this Korean movie, I that guy who did The Good, the Bad, the Weird, The Last Stand, and I Saw the Devil. One of his most popular movies is one called A Bittersweet Life. And not going to lie, it starts off seeming kind of like, it's going to be your very typical kind of like, oh, actually, no, I'm going to actually, going off the DVD menu, it looks like it's going to be really artsy, kind of sad Korean movie because it's just piano.
I'm Korean and I have feelings and I like the piano.
Kind of like that. Yeah.
And I'm narrated by a nice little British boy.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, just for whenever I read the subtitles, I just imagine a British accent, sad British boy. But no, it opens up, like waving trees, sad piano, kind of a thing about, just some like thing about life and depression monologue. Then it opens up, it's like, oh yeah, some guys downstairs are causing trouble. The guy he's in a suit, goes down there, says, okay, you guys are gonna get the fuck out. I'm gonna have to escort you to leave. Then he starts beating the fuck out of this guy. It has this total artsy kind of opening. Then he just goes in there, just starts kicking the fuck out of these guys. And the movie takes a break for a little while. Then you just see this guy's a badass, and you see he's just kind of like, he's almost being kind of like Vince Vega in Pulp Fiction. He's just kind of hanging around his boss's wife, making sure he's supposed to be making sure she's not cheating on him or whatever. And then it turns out she is. And he's supposed to kill him. He's just like, I'm not going to kill you guys. Just fucking stop doing it. And we're going to be fine. And then from there, they find out. And it just turns into like, they try to kill him. But then it just turns into this flat out, badass, bloody revenge movie. But for about a 20-minute period of the movie, it is like a 30-minute period of this movie. There's like, okay, 1, maybe 2 quick action scenes. Then like, slow, like, just him escorting this lady. Here's the drama side. And then this hard and gritty, violent, someone gets shot in the head, literally part of their head's missing. Like, it's also that kind of sloppy action, but every once in a while that sloppy action is kind of cooler. That kind of action where there's 2 guys in the hallway. I don't really know why, but sometimes when you see it in movies, it's cool. That sloppy action where there's two guys in the hallway, they're firing at each other. They're probably only like 15 feet away, but they keep on missing, and then one of them finally hits, gets up to him, like elbows him in the face with the fucking side of the gun or something, then drags him off, you know. So it's
I feel like that's like stylized, but
still kind of stylized. Like, that point where, you know, because you don't see that very much in movies where they're like that close to each other, but for some reason they're just like in that much of a rush. It's kind of like some movies don't address
like old John Woo style.
Well, I mean, more of, I guess, sort of John Woo-ish. I'm thinking more of like, usually if you get something kind of like two guys in a hallway firing at each other, not even really moving, you're just not hitting each other. That just always seems kind of like a little bit maybe more realistic to me, I guess, because I can see if you were in a rush, just pull the gun out, we're just firing at him. One of the bullets might get lucky, might hit him. But I'm not talking about the kind where he's like behind like a pillar with two guns, who comes out and nailing everybody, and they're all not getting him, but he's getting everybody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking like that at all, but yeah, I know what type you're talking.
It is kind of John Woo-ish in that aspect, I guess. I guess I'm kind of thinking, best example I can think of is like, it's actually kind of a cool explanation. Like in Unforgiven, how Clint Eastwood's, how not even Clint Eastwood's this, he does it at the end, but Gene Hackman explains, it don't mean fucking shit if you're the fastest. You got to be the calmest, because what's going to happen is everybody's going to pull their guns out at the same time. They're all going to be firing. They're all going to be missing. It's just a matter of, can you keep your cool? Can you take your time and aim and be lucky enough to hit them before they hit you? It's kind of like that kind of action.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great example right there.
And that's one of the things I love about Unforgiven. And that's kind of the way that the shootouts kind of go in this movie. You know, some two guys can be like 5 feet away from each other, still miss, but eventually one of them's going to get hit and it's going to be bloody as fuck. So check that movie out. It's fucking awesome. A Bittersweet Life.
Yeah, that sounds sweet. What's it called again?
A Bittersweet Life.
Bittersweet Life. Yeah, I'll have to check that one out. That sounds really cool. Because, yeah, sometimes like I literally sometimes will read the back of some movies, and then if it kind of sounds like, there's going to be no action in this movie, well, what's the next movie?
Well, I knew there was going to be a little bit of action just because it was this director, and I'm just looking at a few pictures at the back. I assumed there was going to be more of kind of like something along the lines of like Departed, where there's some action, but it's more of a drama, where this one's really much half and half.
Uh-huh.
Like the first half, it's slow and kind of like all story driven, which the story's not bad, but then once it gets to the action part of it, it's just
once it just starts rolling,
it just fucking goes. It doesn't stop.
That's sweet. Well, it's one of those ones like, you know, it's like, don't get me wrong, I love a good drama, but you know, sometimes when you feel like you're kind of going towards an action style movie, or like this director's doing that or whatnot, and then they switch on you and you're like, oh well, there's maybe a little bit more guns fired in there, that'd probably be cool, but
maybe some shit maybe some shit got shot right here, which just might be a rough
if you could make it kind of more balanced out like Fast and the Furious 7, it would be
which, going back to Fast and Furious 7, I will say I was kind of relieved at the end there, because what ended up happening is I understood why people got filming schedules. Like, okay, so The Rock just had a cool action scene at the beginning, that's all he's in for, he's in the hospital, I get it. But I like, as soon as shit went bad at the end, right in LA, he's just watching the news. He gets up.
He looks out the window.
He like breaks his arm cast off. He's like, get me my Under Armour. You know?
I know. Well, I thought I was kind of afraid that the movie, he was gonna have like a Jet Li in Expendables 2, where he's just gonna be there in the very beginning, and then that was it. That was his only scene. You know, and then when he does do that, where he looks up and looks over, I'm like, oh man, they're gonna have him come back. It'd be fucking badass.
Then it reaches the
point, he just literally flexes, breaks the cast, and he's just healed up and ready to go.
Then he literally, I love when he's going down the street, literally grabs a minigun. He's firing at a fucking helicopter down the street. You don't see that in very many like big like Hollywood action movies anymore.
No, that's what I mean. Is like, that's where I feel like Fast and Furious is like, it's like turned even. This movie right here, just, I really felt like I was almost watching, as I said, like something like a Lethal Weapon or a Die Hard. It gave me that same feel. You know, if anything, some of the other ones are maybe getting closer to that. But this one right here, maybe it was the fact that Kurt Russell was sitting in it too, that just gave it like the authentic feel of like an 80s movie.
And I don't mean this in a snarky kind of like ironic or cynical kind of way, but I love how Kurt Russell was just so kind of like, hey, mechanic that was involved in organized crime. Here's all my resources. Do whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. I'm just, because usually there's that dick measuring contest. Like, I don't trust you. We see that so much. I just kind of like how this movie's like, fuck it. Kurt Russell is totally fine, just lending all his muscle to this guy.
All this technology, all this stuff.
Who he knows is involved with illegal activity, but he doesn't give a fuck. He's Kurt Russell, and he's just been there. He's done that. He knows good guy when he sees it.
I know. I just thought that was bad. He was just so calm. And at first, I actually thought Kurt Russell was going to be like the villain of the movie for some reason, just like in the trailer. And then it's just like, oh no, he's like the good guy. I'm like, that makes it better.
Well, that's one of those things. Like, I will say, I think this movie maybe it was intentional, but it almost seems like to do some setups like that. To like, because I was pretty sure Kurt Russell was going to be the bad guy because he was so helpful and so easy to get along with that my mind immediately goes like, he's going to fuck him over. And then when he doesn't,
he's too nice.
Then when he doesn't, he's like, oh, he was just a nice guy. That's how like fucking cynical of a world we live in.
He's just like the nicest guy out there, really.
He just gave him free beer, free guns. Like, yeah, go ahead, buy all my
technology.
helicopter. I don't give a fuck. Do what you want. You know, I'm just having fun watching you guys do this. I'm just like, oh, he's actually. It makes you feel kind of bad. Kind of like, wow, we live in a cynical world. Just a guy who wants to help and get free guns and booze. He's just, you know.
Oh, really quickly, speaking of, you know, we were talking about earlier that like each Fast and Furious has a different type of racing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this Fast and Furious, what its type of racing was pretty much like chicken, if you think about it, because they have like two scenes where Jason Statham and Vin Diesel are like literally just playing chicken, and each time they run straight into each other. They don't fucking like nobody turns away.
And I like how, and what I did like about Jason Statham's character, he was basically kind of like, I don't give a fuck about honor. You're my brother. I'm just going to try and kill you. Which his opening was actually, even though it was so stylized, when the opening when he's just like talking to his brother on the hospital bed, then he's walking out. You see he's walked out of this hospital. He's just basically killed everybody. There's like fire. There's like
they're all scared like in the corner.
There's like one cop.
That's why he reminds me of like the Terminator. He's like the Terminator brother.
And there's like the one cop. He's like, yo, yeah, take this, mate. Gives them like a grenade. Just shoves them out of the way. Just keeps walking. He's like Furious 7.
Which that Furious 7, you know what that title reminded me of? Like Magnificent 7, but like in a different way.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. That's a good point.
I was wondering, I mean, I know that like, because, you know, they called one Fast 5, so this one's Furious 7, but it did kind of remind me of like, when I saw it come on screen, I was like, huh, it's like Magnificent 7. And sort of since they have this big cast of characters now and so on, sort of had maybe a little reminiscence of that.
I mean, let's do the math. All right, we had Paul Walker, we had Vin Diesel, we had the new character Ramsey. They had was that Outcast?
Ludacris.
I feel bad. I don't know why I get Outcast and Ludacris mixed up. I think it's just the "is" at the end of the names. But yeah, no. Outcast. They're both rappers, right? Yeah. So Outcast, Ludacris, Tyrese, then
you say The Rock probably.
The Rock.
Even though I know he's not.
And then maybe
Are we missing one
Jason Statham?
No.
Paul Walker.
Are we missing like. Oh yeah. I thought you said Paul Walker.
Maybe I did. I don't know.
Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, Ludacris, Tyrese, Ramsey, The Rock, and Michelle Rodriguez.
Oh yeah, Michelle Rodriguez.
So there is 7 like, you know, main characters, I guess you could say.
Makes sense.
Sort of like in it. So it does have the Magnificent 7, the Furious 7 there.
No, I thought that was actually a pretty good one. It was like, I will say that, I mean, I know they're trying to, because they really are trying to push like the realms of believability in it. Just like the part when they drive by, leaves like the sack of like grenades hanging from the helicopter or whatever.
Yeah, that was badass. Like, I don't know, this one, it's like, I feel like every single time I watch these ones, it's almost like they slightly get even better. I still think the original one, no matter what, will always be my favorite. And I think probably the original factor mostly always has that there. But I mean, since it's kind of a clone of like Point Break, and Point Break's one of my favorite movies, I think that also like helps it out too. But this one, though, I would say, I have to give it definitely the second watch or so. I would say it's probably close to being almost like my second favorite one. I don't know.
Yeah, you do need that initial second watch to, you know.
Yeah, because sometimes you get so excited about a movie, you're like, this is the greatest movie ever. And then you watch it a second time, you're like, okay, it was good. Maybe not as grand as the first time I watched it. It also goes the other way around, too, where you watch a movie, you go, this movie is fucking stupid. And then you watch it a second time, you go, no, this movie's actually really, really good.
I never really have the initial, like, this movie's fucking stupid when I first watch it and then come back around later. I could have, like, this movie's okay, but then I come back around later. I'm like, actually, no, it actually was a pretty good movie, like The American.
Yeah, I have, well, yeah, maybe not like horribly bad, but like I do have it where like I see movies and I go, I don't know too much about this movie. I was thinking like Fight Club. That's like the first time I saw Fight Club, I'm like, this is fucking dumb. Like Brad Pitt's not real. I don't want to watch this anymore. And then like the second time I watched it, it was like, no, that makes sense because if I thought of myself as somebody else, it would be Brad Pitt. I'm like, I totally get it. Everything makes sense now.
That thing you wish you could be. That's all.
Yeah, of everything you wish you were. You're like, that's right. You're speaking truth, Brad Pitt.
That's actually that period where I think Brad Pitt was kind of like that was that transformative period where it was like guys still didn't like Brad Pitt, but that was almost the movie that kind of brought him around. And once you actually saw that movie, you're just like, actually, you know what? This Brad Pitt guy, he actually ain't so bad. It was kind of like, I mean, not as Brad Pitt much more so, but it was kind of like Channing Tatum for me. Like for a while, I was just like, fuck this Channing Tatum. He just to come in and just show his abs and smile. And that's all he has to do. And then all of a sudden, by the time he got to like 21 Jump Street, and I was okay with him a little bit more by G.I. Joe 2, and then other stuff happened. I was just like, all right, maybe I'm going to go see everything he's in, but he's okay. That guy's all right. Not that I think that he was losing any sleep, gaining the approval of someone like me, but I mean, it was one of those things. I mean, that guy has like a house probably made of pussy, so he probably doesn't give a fuck. But I mean,
no, but I think that's just how a lot of actors are. It's like Leo had that same problem too.
Yeah, totally.
Like guys just hated Leo. Like the fucking Man in the Iron Mask, Titanic. What the fucking bullcrap is this? And then he worked his way around, and then the women started like not caring for him as much. But then the men were like, "No, man, Leo's a fucking badass actor."
You got Aviator, you got Gangs of New York, and I think that's where he turned a lot of heads.
Yeah, that was like the turning point right there.
I think you had Gangs of New York, and people were still like, "Oh, Mr. Titanic's in that shit." We'll see what happens.
Well, that was like the first one. I remember it was kind of a big deal because it's kind of like, oh, Leonardo DiCaprio's in it. And it was. I think it was like it's not like I really wanted to like dislike Leonardo. It's like society made me feel like I needed to slightly dislike Leo. It was just one of those ones like because I'm like I like Man in the Iron Mask. Titanic. It's got some cool action scenes in it. Like
And then you watch, and then you see, then you saw him like in Aviator. Okay, Aviator, he's a bit more better. He's a better. Well, the one that actually won me over, and it wasn't like I was looking to hate him by this point. It's just like, oh yeah, that dude, yeah. The one that totally won me over was Departed. Departed was the one like, no, this guy is fucking raw. This guy's a badass.
No, yeah, I guess by that period, I don't even know if there's like a singular movie it did. It was just more like a handful of them kind of weaved together.
Blood Diamond, which was good, but that one Blood Diamond was good, but it definitely helped that time. That was more of like one of those mid-range like drama / action movies,
Yeah. But then, he worked his way up. And it's kind of like the same thing happened with Brad Pitt. He worked his way up from like Fight Club on. Even though he has some sweet movies before Fight Club as well, too. But from that period, then he started doing, Troy. And he did, well, Ocean's 11's not really like as a man one as much, too. But I still like it a lot. And then he did, how am I drawing a blank on a lot of his action movies? Like, what's an early Brad Pitt action movie other than Troy? Early 2000s.
Early 2000s Brad Pitt action. I guess, well... This ain't for me, but I guess Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
No, that's like a romantic action movie. That's not.
But that's still one I think that kind of like brought a lot of people in. I think that one. I mean, maybe not you and me, but I think that still brought people in because like, okay, well, we got one for the ladies, we got one for the guys.
If anything, that there was like the Mexican prior to that one.
Oh, Mexican's fantastic. I
but that was one of those movies like it doesn't sell like when you first kind of look at the trailer, it's just kind of like because I remember like I think. When I went to the movies, like my parents or something, like they went and saw the Mexican, but they probably dropped me off at I don't know, fucking
Pokemon the movie.
Yeah, something like that. Whatever would have came out around the same time that movie did, and so, but later on when seeing the Mexican, it's like that's like the perfect example of a really good romantic action movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't think of anything else other than Troy is the one that comes to mind as like the main, like the even bigger turning point past Fight Club. But
there's other ones out there, but when you think back on most of his movies that have come out recently, he'll do like one big action movie like World War Z, and then he'll have like a bunch of things like a little bit more just straight drama or a little bit more artsier, like the Tree of Life or something like that.
Yeah, he'll have things like that. Or then he has Fury, which is like the mix of like drama.
Oh, Fury was fucking badass. Have you seen that yet?
I did. I saw it at Kyle's house the other day.
Oh my god, that was such a fucking awesome movie.
I was really bummed I did not see that in theaters.
Same here. Like that was a movie I was like when it came out, I was like, "Oh, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I'd like to see it." But then when I
just
saw
didn't have
it
money. That was like my problem. I just like I'm like Could have food for the week, or I could go see Fury. And lots of times, I tell you this,
like Brad Pitt will give me all the nourishment I need.
most of the time I will spend money on something, in a sense, silly, over something that I physically actually need. But one time I didn't. And
that was such an awesome movie. Plus, I like there's so many funny parts in it. Maybe they're not intended to be. I think, you know what? I think they actually are intended to be kind of funny. The reason I say that is because I notice a lot of times directors, there'll be a maybe dramatic scene in the movie, but even they'll laugh at something that is kind of fucked up, even though they present it as a dramatic way. The reason I say that is because I listened to the audio commentary to District 9, and there's some parts in that movie where it's the more like darker, bleaker parts that aren't presented in the funny way. But then you hear Neil Blomkamp go like, that's my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
So you get this movie. So I could see David Ayer being the exact same way. So you get to the part where like, where he's just like, come on, he's like beating the shit out of the new guy. Like, you just got to aim the gun at the Nazi, blow his goddamn head up, shoots him.
Well,
there you go.
I was laughing because I was like, I'm like, that poor German guy. He's probably just like, Americans are fucking crazy. Look, they're fighting each other. Like,
no,
this poor guy sitting there like, I have a family and stuff. He speaks like very little English, and there's like these two American guys fucking fighting over a gun, just going like, I don't know. He's like, you know what? Being a Nazi seems like a bad thing. It's like, it's not like I decided to do it. It was just one of those things, like, the whole town kind of had to do it. It wasn't like you could say no. I saw what happened to the guys that said no, and I was like, fuck, I don't want to be that guy. That's why I feel kind of bad. I mean, like, I know that they're like in a tank squad, so they can't take any prisoners, but I felt really bad for that Nazi guy. I was just like, because, a lot of those guys, they just had to take that as a job. It wasn't like there was fucking choice. You know what I mean?
I understand that. Yeah, I get that. But strictly in the context of the movie, of just Brad Pitt like making him point the gun, and he's trying to calmly just point the gun, put the hammer back, and then like, the kid's like,
boy.
He's like, no, I can't do it. They just pulls the trigger. There, gets up, throws the gun, kicks in the ribs. Do your fucking job. Walks away. You just have like a studio audience laugh track over that part.
It's funny because it's not like I was feeling bad for the guy that was trying to shoot him. I just felt bad for the Nazi guy because it's just like this, it's like, what are they gonna do? Like, how are you gonna take a prisoner in a tank? You know what I mean? Like, what, strap him to the fucking hood like he's a deer or something like that? Plus, it had like that ending so badass. They're like, the tank fucking broken. What are we gonna do? I'll vote we stay here. Awesome. And then they just kind of hang out there and just like defend like off that huge like Nazi army. And, they kill, like, I don't know how, it doesn't really say, but it looks like they kill, like, 150, soldiers or something from one standing tank.
And then, like, it's like some of the small lines. Like, have you ever killed a man? He's like, no, you don't worry, you will. Chucks him a gun, walks by.
No,
that is just such a fucking badass movie. I love that movie so much. I want to get that on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I would like to get that one. That was a sweet one. To David Ayer,
that's right behind
badass.
That's right behind Guardians of the Galaxy. I still got to get that. Got to get Wolf of Wall Street. Then I got to get here. I haven't got Guardians yet. No, I've seen it so many times though. I saw it like 3 times in theaters, and then when I went home for Christmas, I showed it to my folks on pay-per-view. So I've seen it like
that right there. Probably like would kill the urge to buy it at the moment because you've seen it so many times.
I do want to get it because I've seen it like. By this, since pay-per-view plays like on a 2-day loop, I've seen it like 8 times by this point. So I still want to get it, but it's just I would like Fury though. That movie, I just loved that movie. It was so awesome.
Yeah, because Guardians, I've seen it about 3 or 4 times by now. Yeah, a lot of times that's what happens. Like sort of like if you see a movie a bunch of times, then it makes it kind of hard to go out and buy. It's sort of like playing a video game through, even if it's like a really good game. But say you played the whole thing through, and you're like, man, I'd love to own that, but then you kind of go, well, I feel like spending $50 on it right now. I mean, I kind of already played the whole thing, and I know what happens. So,
Mm-hmm. I will say I did feel sorry for those 2 German girls where they stop in and like how Brad Pitt just wants to have a nice dinner, but the other
then like
the guy from
like retards come in.
They come in, they fuck everything up. You just feel bad for them. Then that's like their last moment.
Then they get fucking missile gets or like a mortar or whatever hits like the house, and then like they're dead. The guy's like, "Oh, it's like, what are you doing? Who cares? He's fucking dead."
He's just like, "Well, you're gonna that's actually one of those things where it really makes you hate like." Yeah, it really makes you hate the guy for. I mean, I know it's. I was kind of laughing, but I still felt bad for him, like the typewriter kid, because there's the guy he plays the drug dealer in Wolf of Wall Street, and he's also He's in Walking. He played the
He's in
what was he?
the
Grudge Match.
Grudge Match. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Robert De Niro's son in Grudge Match. Made you hate that guy in the minute because he's like, no, the only girl he ever like fucked or anything. He's trying to like, just what are you gonna do? Resurrect her from dead? Get your ass back in the tank. Come on, boy. No.
Come on, get it, Tank. We'll circle jerk on the way to the next town.
So like, yeah, that was just, I love that movie. That if I saw that movie earlier, that probably would have made my year. That my one of my favorite movies of the year right there.
I know, I was bummed because as well as movies like. It's the point where it's like, yeah, I didn't have enough money, and then it didn't come out on DVD enough where I could like rent it on Netflix in time to watch it. So I felt bad, but that's the one that always happens. You know, you make these lists of movies, and then down the road you find a bunch of other sweet movies over time that you're like, fuck, I wish I would have saw that. Especially when you knew you could have saw it, like you had the power, sort of.
Especially that movie, like I think everybody was doing awesome in that movie. Even like someone who I'm not like that big of a fan of, Shia LaBeouf was really good in that flick.
Well, I will say Shia LaBeouf he's worked his way better in life. I'm not saying like I totally like him, but I've seen him in movies where like it was Wall Street 2 was kind of a turning point for me, and then he was in Lawless, and he wasn't too bad in that one. And then, as I said, this one, like it took me. I didn't even realize I was fucking him for a while. I was like, oh fuck, he's the guy with the mustache.
Yeah. And then there's that line, just like I kind of, even though he's kind of like, because everybody in that movie seems kind of like an extension of off each other. It seems kind of like. The most tame guy is the new guy. Then you got Shia LaBeouf, but he's a little bit more battle hardened. And then you got the Mexican dude. Then you got Brad Pitt, and then you got the psychotic asshole. And it just seems like that's kind of like the most tame person to the most like insane.
Yeah,
person.
they go like degrees.
Yeah, each one's at a certain degree. And I kind of like how even like Shia LaBeouf, he's all like, they're all talking for a minute because he's like one of the only religious guys in the whole like unit. I love that line they give him. It's like, hey, you think Jesus loves Hitler? So it's like, of course Jesus loves Hitler. That means it's going to stand for man's justice. It's like those kind of lines right there.
Yeah. No, that one was just kind of like, it had that like, you know, it's a war movie, but it almost has just a bit of like this dark comedy thrown into it. I don't know how else to describe it. And then at the top of it off, it's kind of like, it has just great action and all kinds of stuff going on. And then well written, well directed. Everything was good about that one.
I'm so looking forward to Suicide Squad.
I know David Ayer's he's on top because I love Sabotage. Sabotage was so badass. I hope they can release that like extended cut that I hear so much about from a handful of people out there in the miscellaneous like world. That
Sabotage was another one that was just like I wish I saw that in theaters. I saw that on Netflix right before we did our favorite movies of the year, and like. That was like, oh, I was so kicking myself for not seeing that in theaters because that movie, I was so surprised. I knew it was gonna be violent, but I was so surprised how violent it was and how like it went directions I really wasn't expecting. Because maybe it was part of like the advertising campaign because the advertising campaign made it look almost kind of like other action movies. But I mean, a little bit more grittier, a little bit more violent, but like other action movies. But when you actually see it, there's so much to that movie that just stands out. It's not
in the trailer, yeah. No.
Have you seen, speaking of Arnold, have you seen the trailer for Maggie yet?
I know. I can't wait to go see that one. It comes out next month. That one's going to be cool. It's directed by the guy who did the title sequences for The Last of Us and a bunch of other video games. So it's a video game guy directing a movie. And like what he's done is he's done title sequences. It sounds like the weirdest thing, like, but like that's what he's done. He did title sequences for some other movies, and then a handful of video games too. Somebody named him off a bunch. I think it was on the Arnold fans. They were talking about it, and then it was like, oh, when I heard Last of Us, like, oh, that makes sense because it had that vibe to it, you know.
I was gonna say because it did feel like not because of the zombie stuff. Because I kind of forget Last of Us is even a zombie story, but almost just has
I guess
that
I don't
same
forget
vibe.
that because The Last of Us just reminds me of like this is Resident Evil's competition. So like no matter what, I always think of it just as a zombie thing.
I guess because I guess it seems more of kind of like zombie, even though it all happens because of like the fungus zombie or whatever. It almost seems like to me like the human element. I'm not trying to sound cheesy there, but like more of like the relationship between Joel and Ellie, as well as like the human people they come across, like that whole dynamic.
The human people are more fucked up than actually the zombies are.
Yeah, that whole aspect. Like all the human people are more weirder and more fucked up than the zombies in the game. So that's why I'm like, oh yeah, and there's zombies here. I forgot about that. So that's one of those things because it's not, and even like the idea, because the thing about like I'd still consider like a horror game, but not a full tilt horror game, just because usually in a horror game, maybe primarily Japanese horror, they're reminding you the whole time, this is horror, this is horror, this is horror. Look, here comes like Voldo from Soul Calibur with like a chainsaw for a strap-on dildo, and then like this one was like very much of like, oh well, it was scary when it needed to be. There's some moments where you're in a dark room and you had to be quiet for a minute and you had to run and you're kind of urgent, but beyond that it was all very much kind of like took time, like, oh, isn't this pretty right here, isn't that nice over there? It really was paced out.
I think it's the pacing's just different. I mean, once again, I still think of it like first and foremost as a horror one, but it had just that drama element, I think, to it, which was kind of like the difference in that game compared to like, where Resident Evil still has its drama moments in it, but it's more focused on
Ada, no.
Exactly. That no matter what though, it's like one's like there's no way like in my brain that I can like compensate that I'm like Last of Us is never nearly as good as Resident Evil. There's just no way. It's hard for me to like.
I understand,
but that's just being a Resident Evil fan, and it's like there was a guy literally at GameStop. And I was looking at like the PS4s there or something like that. And he's like, "Oh, dude, this one comes with The Last of Us or whatever." It's like my favorite game fucking ever. I loved it so much. And I'm like, it was good. Like I literally when he said that, it made me go like, I really like The Last of Us. But the second I heard that, I was like, it was good.
It
just not like
down
fucking Resident Evil though. And then he started like, well, Resident Evil though. I mean, like
shaking his tits, like that. Nobody saw what Spencer just did. Spencer just started like almost shifting his shoulders back and forth, like he's mimicking someone walking. Like, well.
He started doing that thing like he's like, well, I like the original Resident Evil games up to 4. I'm like, I like Resident Evil 6 way more than I like Last of Us. I'm gonna fucking say it, but I still like Last of Us. I'm not saying anything down against it, but I'm just saying, it's like Revelations 2 kind of has that Last of Us feel to it, but
I'll say Last of Us. I mean, because like we said the last podcast, I really haven't played that much Resident Evil, and I like what I've played of Resident Evil. But Last of Us, I like it more, but that's just because I really didn't grow up on Resident Evil as much.
Yeah, and it's kind of like
Last of Us. I will say Last of Us though. I think one of the biggest. I mean, the gameplay itself is fun. I think the biggest shining star of it, as weird as this may sound, I think the biggest shining star of it is the writing and the voice acting, because that has probably some of the best writing and voice acting I've heard in a video game. Because usually when I play a game and there's a cutscene, I feel like, okay, this is maybe the barrier between like someone who, if someone never played a video game before, they saw this and they didn't watch anime or read comics, this might seem a little cheesy. Last of Us is like one of the only ones I think you could probably, if you really just took that, they're making a movie, which is kind of a waste, I think, because we already got the game, which is already good enough.
Well, they did the Uncharted movie first.
They're doing Uncharted as well, but if you just probably took all the cutscenes and laid them out for someone who'd never played video games, and just they'd probably like it. I bet they'd probably get into it because I think the writing is so good and the voice acting so good.
I mean, I think nowadays it's like, I'm not gonna say Last of Us is like groundbreaking in that sense, because there's I still see a lot of games kind of prior to it, like Uncharted and Gears of War, and I mean, it's like it's almost common to get these like really good cinematics because you don't think of it back in the day, but when you go back and play some of those PS2 and Dreamcast games, that's where you see some of those cinematics that are a little bit like on the cornier side, and you're like, oh wow, like we used to think these are the greatest things ever. And that's not saying like every game, but there's just, a good handful that kind of have it. Where nowadays it's like most of the cinematics always are, they're kind of always up to at least par. I'm going to say Last of Us is definitely in a high category there, but maybe I think this is where Last of Us like jumps out. Like it's sort of like, I probably would like Crash Bandicoot to the extreme if I never played Mario. You know what I mean? But playing Mario and Sonic prior to that, like, don't get me wrong, I like Crash Bandicoot, but it's never going to be Mario or Sonic to me. And I think that's kind of how I look at Last of Us. I hated Crash. I was going to say, it's like another Naughty Dog comparison. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, this almost could work in like the Uncharted way with like Tomb Raider, I guess you could say, even though like Uncharted just feels, it's like Tomb Raider, but also different too at the same time. I don't know, but
well, I'll say for a long time when I was a kid, I hated Crash Bandicoot just
competition.
Because, like, that's the asshole that wishes he was Mario or Sonic. He just doesn't have the fucking balls to choose which one he wants to be, you know? Now I look back, oh yeah, Crash was fun. I don't really care as much. Back when you were a kid, you thought you had to pick a side.
There was like this
But-
war that was going to happen one of these days, and then some point Nintendo was going to send you this special message through your N64 that was going to tell you that it's time to grab arms and take up, and we're going to take down these damn Sony people.
Or you're afraid that like Sega was like, well, you got to choose Nintendo or Sega, you know, like, oh fuck.
You didn't want Mr. Miyamoto to come over to your house and catch you playing Sega Genesis.
I just imagine some kid just play closes the blinds all of a sudden, like, you know, just pulls like a little black box. It's like a Genesis, turns it on, starts playing. All of a sudden, you know, like you just hear in the corner of the room that like Metal Gear Solid, ding! You know, the exclamation mark.
Miyamoto's just in the house, like dun 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 dun.
and like a box in the corner.
Yeah, exactly. So there was this time, but now it's like you kind of go fuck. Like you put Sonic and Mario together, it's like you realize you could have the sweetest game ever. I know they haven't totally done that yet, but
with Smash Brothers, that's the closest. Well, Olympics, Olympics just seemed like one, like, we'd get to that. It doesn't seem like the one you'd start with. It doesn't seem like Mario and Sonic finally together. Yeah, man, what are they doing? Are they going on adventures? No, they're fucking playing curling. It's like, oh, what else are they doing? They're rowing some fucking boats.
I'm more
Anything
surprised.
else? Then they're throwing some fucking poles and seeing who can throw them the furthest. Like, oh, when are they going to fight Bowser and Eggman together? Oh, don't worry. They're going to go against them together. Oh, I'm doing
Skiing.
what? Playing fucking hockey. Yeah, and skiing and figure dancing. Like, oh, well, okay. That's not what I was hoping for, but I mean, maybe we'll work our way up to it eventually.
Yeah, you think that like the crossover would have been better in like a Mario Kart game or something to start it off. But
Yeah.
I'm surprised to this day. I'm like, I know they finally have slightly worked their way towards it, but hopefully Mario Kart 9 should just be literally like Smash Brothers, where like it's not just Mario Kart, it's like Nintendo Kart, I guess you could almost say.
Wasn't Sonic a playable character in one of the Mario Karts?
No, Sonic.
I thought he was downloadable.
He has his own Mario Kart game.
Oh yeah, Sonic All Stars or whatever.
Yeah, which is like
They should maybe do some kind of like trade-off thing. I mean, I know this might be. I mean, Nintendo would probably be the ones saying no, you can't have them. But I could see, it would make sense, I think, to maybe do a thing like, okay, here's Sega All Stars. In Sega All Stars, you can play as like 2 downloadable extra characters as guest stars. Here's Mario and Luigi, and then for
maybe
like
Mario and Link,
Mario,
just to have like
yeah. Or then like for like Mario, then for like the Mario Kart version, you got like, you know, Sonic and Tails or Sonic and Shadow, something like that.
Yeah, well, because you know, I will say the one thing that the Sega All Stars does, or the Sonic All Stars kart game does, is they have a bunch of Sega other characters in it that aren't just like Sonic the Hedgehog characters. So they did do it before Nintendo did.
They did. I will say that right there is, well, I think if you probably look at that game, if I had to guess, I bet all the Sonic, I haven't played that game, but I'm guessing all the Sonic characters outweigh everybody else, or at least top it off, because you probably got, like, I'm guessing, Sonic characters aside, you got probably Shenmue, you got Knights, you got Monkey Ball Monkey, and then you got, like, Virtua Fighter. Do you have anybody else in there?
I can't remember. I played like the versions on like the phone, and it wasn't like the Sonic characters outweighed them. I know
Jet
that
Red Radio.
Yeah,
I mean, like, outweighed them, like there's probably more Sonic characters or just as many Sonic characters as everybody else.
No, yeah.
Uh,
It's one of those ones, like, I know that there is just a bunch of other characters in it. I can't remember. I don't even know who the heck's in it. I have to look that up. But
something I did hear, I'm not sure if you heard about this. Sega actually came out and like had a bunch of massive layoffs like probably about a month or so ago, because they're going to be doing more focusing on like on apps and mobile games. But Sonic will still have more of a presence. I mean, he'll have a presence on mobile shit, but he'll be on more console stuff as well. Most other things will be more like more cell phone, mobile related, which kind of fucking sucks. But you know,
that kind of sucks because I mean, like, I know that like nowadays, like, you technically, like, you could turn your mobile phone pretty much into like a Game Boy, because you know they have all these nice fancy controllers. I think it's called like a Mobo or something like that you can get and you can plug in, and that gets rid of all like the kind of like the touchscreen controls. And I will say that, like, you do look at some of those games on there, and they kind of blow me away. I'll see somebody playing something like that. It's like, holy crap, those graphics, you know, are actually pretty darn good for a cell phone. I guess it just throws you off because It just maybe like I didn't stay in touch as much as everyone else did. It just feels like there's this jump where they just went, it's like, oh fuck, that's that's better than a PlayStation 1 game on there.
Well, I will say that I know I'm not trying to be a naysayer to mobile games altogether. I mean, I don't really play any, but the thing about them is I know that in time they probably will get good at being as good as like a console game, and we will probably reach this point where we might have like games like on the mobile possibly winning like big awards, and not just kind of best mobile game of the year, but I mean like getting big awards and actually being recognized as really good, fully functional games. I'm sure that time will come, and the way it's going to come is if you push it. But that being said, though, I don't really want companies to full on just abandon console and just go to like fucking mobile games, because at the moment,
I don't think that's happening.
Because I mean,
anytime soon.
Well, Sega said they're looking to do more of like focus, and it sucked because the statement they put out, it didn't sound like it wasn't really anything to the effect of like, oh yeah, look, we're looking to expand and reach our like audience. It was like from like some head guy at Sega, and he was speaking it like clearly, like soullessly, like Sonic the Hedgehog franchise has more possibility on the consoles. Beyond that, though, we are looking to expand resources onto the mobile platforming and renew and like exceed more of our profits through, it's like so cut dry. Like, no, we're doing it for the fans. It's just so don't give a fuck. Give us your money.
Really quickly, back on that Sonic Racing, they actually do have a lot of like sweet kind of like other Sega characters. You get BD Joe from Crazy Taxi,
cool.
Joe Musashi from Shinobi. You do get Ryo from Shenmue. They got Alex the Kid in there. They got Wreck-It Ralph.
Fuck that.
They got Wreck-It Ralph, and they got Danica Patrick from fucking actual NASCAR. It's kind of weird. They got the Knights guy in there.
Well, was Danica Patrick wasn't she like supporting? Wasn't she like a Sega sponsor at one point in time?
Not that
I thought
know
Sega
of,
maybe Sega was like on the side of her.
I mean, I'm not saying anything against
yeah.
her. I mean, like that's cool. I mean, I guess that's kind of like having a what the hell's that racing game that Sega had, the NASCAR one for the longest time.
I know what you're talking about, but yeah,
that really good one. But so I guess it's kind of like that. They got the Gum from Jet Set Radio and Beat. They got the little elf guy from Golden Axe. So like, there's some pretty sweet characters. Skies Arcadia. So I will say they do have a pretty versatile list right there. Looking at it,
maybe another Skies of Arcadia game. Maybe you should try that shit out.
I know that's like it's one of those ones. Sega's kind of like, it's like they got so many of these like fantastic series that I don't know why they don't just like put another one out. And I think that what happens is sometimes they try to put another one of these ones out, and maybe it doesn't get like the full budget and attention that this game needs. And then it kind of craps out, and they go, well, I guess that didn't work out.
Well, the sad thing is I feel a little guilty because I'm saying they should do this and they should do that, because I loved Jet Grind Radio. I absolutely loved that game for Dreamcast. But when when the sequel came out for Xbox, it was like, oh, that's there. And I did nothing about it. I'm sure it's a fun game, but it was just like, oh yeah, that exists, doesn't it?
I own it, and it's a good one. Like, but yeah, something about it's like, I don't know. Like sometimes some video games don't translate like through from console to console. I don't know what it is, but it's like one's like, make another Shinobi game. Like that's one of your main things. Like do it like full on the console. I guess they probably have to change up a bit now, is you can't just do the Ninja Gaiden thing anymore, because even the Ninja Gaiden thing's not working out as well for Ninja Gaiden.
Shinobi's probably going to have to be more of like a tall tale kind of thing now, because isn't that basically what it was originally?
You mean like a point and click game?
Well, wasn't Shinobi originally basically kind of like... Oh, I'm thinking Shenmue.
No,
I'm thinking Shenmue. Never mind. No.
Oh, no. Shenmue, yeah. No, the Shinobi's like, side-scroller, it's just like Ninja Gaiden. It's like the other Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, they're going to have to, something like that. But they can probably... I bet Shenmue, if you do it like a...
Well, everybody... There's such a big, ask for Shenmue 3. People have been asking that, since Shenmue 2. And there's, all kinds of polls. Like, they were like, for PS4, we want Shenmue 4 or Shenmue 3 to come out. There's all kinds of things going on for that. But who knows there? That's kind of like it's such a cult series now that's almost kind of like, it was really big for anybody who has a Dreamcast. Like Shenmue was such a big deal, but if you never really had a Dreamcast, nobody really knows of it or cares. Sadly enough, But then you got Golden Axe, you got Streets of Rage. Hell, make another Crazy Taxi. I mean, it's been a while.
Going back to Shenmue for a second, I bet you probably could do a Shenmue now, because now people, for a while it seemed like that'd be a weird translation, but now, I mean, if you made a game, because now what's really popular as far as downloadable games go is like the Telltale games right now.
Telltale.
Yeah, Telltale. the one right now I'm playing one called it's the same kind of style, but it's by Square Enix and something else. It's called Life is Strange, and it's basically
Oh, I saw that one, or it came up on the PlayStation Network.
yeah, and I've been playing that one, and I got the season pass on, and I like it, but it's one of those kind of things where it takes the same concept of like choose your adventure, but you can rewind time to a certain point, but regardless, whatever you pick, it's not like, oh, here's you can go down like the perfect way or you can go down the evil way. It's like, oh well, whatever you're gonna do, it's gonna screw someone else over, or someone's gonna get pissed off at you in some way, so you gotta plan this shit ahead.
Just make that decision.
Yeah, so it's a good game. I like that game, but it's one of the,
It looked interesting, but like, it's a point and click game.
to an extent. I'm gonna basically the way it works. I'm not gonna lie. It's not a perfect game, but it's enjoyable. Basically, and I like the story. You're this girl in high school, and the high school you're at, it's like this. I guess it's sort of like it's not like a preppy boarding school, but you're living at some kind of boarding school, some kind of like academy. You're a photo student, and one day, this girl you used to know gets shot in the girls' bathroom. Then somehow you rewind time before that happens. So you try to get over there before it happens again. And some things happen, like the teacher holds you up in class, like shit, he keeps holding me up, and so you rewind time, like give him the correct answer. You don't get it the first time, so you rewind time, get the correct answer, that kind of stuff. You get back over there, and then it's sort of point and click, but not. But you can still move around, like you still are a 3D character in a 3D environment. But it'll be something like, okay, shit, what I got to do, and you keep on rewinding time till you figure it out. There's like just the good example right here. To get the guy out of there, you can't confront him. You have to like push like this like janitor crate out of the way. There's a hammer in there. You hit the use the hammer to like break the fire bell, and then you set the fire alarm, and then that gets him to leave. So it's something to that effect. So it's kind of like you have those kind of puzzles that take a second, but that's not really the main mechanic of the game where you figure it out. Because that was the thing about the Jurassic Park game, was it was all time based and all just kind of like you got to figure this puzzle out. Where there's a little bit of figuring out the puzzle here, but it's more than anything just kind of like making a certain choice, which has an effect on the rest of the game.
Well, I think the Jurassic Park game, that's like what kind of like made me like iffy about a lot of those series of games, because it was a game I was looking so forward to getting, because in all the pictures it looked like it was like Dino Crisis Jurassic Park style, and it's like, oh, it's gonna be so fucking badass. And then Cisco finally got the game and went over to his house to play it, and I was like, oh, I'll pick it up, like the next couple days or something like that. And then I just look and I go, oh, it's literally just an active time battle game the whole time. There's no actual walking around, no actual fighting. It's just like, oh.
In this game,
and it's like, and the only thing to me, it's like, I'm like, those kind of games were cool in like the early 90s on like PC and Sega CD. I just have a hard time. I'm not saying anything against that style of game. I just have a hard time buying that game nowadays. Like, it's just one of those ones like, there was a time, and the whole point was because things were limited, so like that's kind of like what you did. Where now it's like, we're not limited, so why are you limiting me again?
Yeah, like that right there. Like, I see what you mean. And the game that definitely has some of those kind of you got to figure out. Like, there's a part where your friend. Okay, like the game definitely has some of these moments where it is like for instance, there's another part where your friend gets stuck on these railroad tracks. And you got to figure out how to like get her off. So you got to run around the corner, go find this toolbox, break into this like little thing to like basically pull the lever so the tracks shift so you can get her off on time. So there is some of that kind of time based action in it, but it's much more like focusing on the rewind time for a minute and try a different choice. That's what it's more relying on. Like, and for instance, like there's a part where there's this one girl. Because it is kind of a high school story. There is this one girl that is being bullied, at school. People are spreading rumors about her. She was possibly like drugged at a party and all that kind of shit. So she's basically being bullied, and you're kind of her only friend. And the way you treat her has a little bit of effect. Now, there is no thing kind of like, quit being a stupid bitch. There's no like response like that. But it is kind of like you can say because they're trying to make you a nice character regardless. But there is the correct thing to say to her, which will make her happy or more sad or whatever. But then there's also like you get the option at some point in the game, you have to go to her room and talk to her. And you can kind of go look around her room and gather information if you want. First time, I didn't. I just went to her, talked to her, left. Later in the game, she's on the roof, jumps off the roof and kills herself. And I go out there, you try to snare drum, yeah.
That's pretty.
So you go out there, you have to go out there, and for whatever reason, your time thing isn't working. So you have to basically talk her from the edge. And if you did not go in that room and look around and get all the previous information, you would not have the proper information to get her to step down from the ledge.
Huh.
So it's kind
That
of
makes sense.
It's
it's got a lot of these kind of like thinking problems and stuff in it and whatnot.
Yeah, and it's only 2 episodes in. There's 3 more that got to come out. So I mean, it is a pretty linear thing, it seems, but
that's fine. I like linear more than like free roaming sometimes.
I think every so often we kind of think like, when you play Fallout 3, for instance, for the first time, like, oh my God, I can do anything. What if not saying I don't want to do this to Liam Neeson or to anybody or to mine, but like, what happens if I kill my dad right here and you just shoot him like, hey, stop doing that. I'm your father. Oh, okay. So it's like so the game does. So like, a lot of even these games seem very expansive, have their boundaries, but in this game,
exactly.
Definitely has that, but I think it's pretty well written. There's a couple characters that are kind of like, oh, there's the stereotypical high school, like, bitch. There's the stereotypical high school kid. But overall, it's a pretty good game.
They exist, huh? It's pretty cool. Well, it's probably a pretty good place to leave off at. I think we're running at the little bit later mark. Mm-hmm. And then I also got to go walk the dogs out in the snowy thunder.
You guys are snowing out there? Here it's nice and sunny.
Yeah, it's snowing. Well, San Francisco always has the opposite weather of the rest of California.
It sort of seems. Well, it was raining last night, but I guess it passed over and it's over to you.
I mean, it could be summertime everywhere in California. You go to San Francisco and it's like winter.
Yeah.
And vice versa. But, yeah. Till then, check out oldmanorange.com. You can find me on Twitter at Spencer S. Holmes, and you can find Ryan at
Dunigan Ryan.
And then we still got our t-shirts for sale, so make sure you go to teespring.com/oldmanorange and pick up some of those. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, tell everybody you know. Helps out the show a bit. But, yeah, anything else you want to say?
No, I'm good to go.
Okay. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
I'm Ryan Dunigan.
We'll see you some other time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Old Man Orange podcast. Check out our website at oldmanorange.com for even more podcasts, cartoons, videos, music, and more. Send us an email at oldmanorangepodcast@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe, share, rate, and review us on iTunes, Podomatic, or any of the other fine sites we might be located on. And if you want to help out even more, click on the Amazon or GameStop links on our webpage before you make any purchases there. It won't cost you a penny, but it sends us a little something our way. Thanks again, and tune in next week for more Old Man Orange Podcast.